must make the hard choices to reduce the cost of health care and the size of our deficit. But we reject the belief that America must choose between caring for the generation that built this country and investing in the generation that will build its future.
That was my key takeaway yesterday from the president's speech. President Obama laying the framework for what he hopes to accomplish in his second term with yesterday's inaugural address. There were some surprises in the speech, but what will be the lasting impressions going forward as Washington gets back to work? We're joined now by George Bachrach, Democratic political analyst, and Jeff Simone. He is the communications director for the Massachusetts Young Republicans. You're both going to get a chance to talk with George. As president of the Environmental League, you had to be practically falling off your chair when he started talking about global warming. That was completely unexpected.
Well, it was not brought up in the campaign. It was exciting to hear it raised the other day. This is clearly a generational issue that he's raised. If we don't deal with it now, the kind of droughts, the kind of severe storms that we've experienced, the wildfires, are only going to get worse. It's an economic issue. How do you pay for the destruction of Katrina? How do you pay for the destruction of Sandy? We've got to deal with it.
Jeff, for a lot of people, they said, well, there was no singing moment for the president. There was nothing really shockingly new. It was the same themes that he's been expressing for a while, and yet with a different tenor. Did you have a takeaway from your point of view?
What I took away from it is that he's committed to a left-leaning, liberal, progressive agenda. And the thing that stood out to me most was the fact that he is going to go to the floor for Medicare, Medicaid, and Social Security, which are the drivers of our deficit and debt right now. And we have divided government. We have the Republicans controlling the House of Representatives, so regardless of what the president wants to get done, the Republicans will probably stand in the way, and rightfully so.
I wouldn't call it a left-leaning agenda. I would call it the winning agenda. It's what the American people voted for. They had two clear choices. And I think what you're seeing is a president who had to clean up the other guy's mess. He inherited 2 wars and an economy in free fall. That was the last 4 years. Now he's stating a new agenda, the Obama agenda, which is going to be about equal rights, truly, and it's going to be about climate, it's going to be about immigration reform, and yes, he's saying, you know what, Social Security and Medicaid and Medicare are not really bad things.
Of course George would call it a winning agenda, Jeff. And the president did win by the narrowest of margins. So how does he get things done, though? How do you get things done in divided government at this point?
Well, you look at, say, the contrast between President Reagan's 1985 second inaugural speech, where he said government is the problem. This is in direct 180 degrees right around from that, where Obama is saying government is most of the solution. And Republicans don't see the world that way. We profoundly disagree on a philosophical way about how we should be led, how we should be governed, and we will fight when we can.
Despite broke government, things got done in the first administration. Obamacare got done. The retreat from, or the withdrawal from Afghanistan and Iraq got done. What could get done, George, in the second term, given the fact that he's got nothing to lose? Call him lame duck, call him whatever you want, he's got nothing to lose.
Well, you've got to implement health care in this country and actually deal with cost, not just access. You've got to deal with immigration reform, 11 million people living in the shadows. You know,
Jeff, do you think any chance immigration gets done?
I think that's just about the only chance anything will get done.
That's a pretty big thing, considering that George Bush hung his hat on it and it failed, and he had Republicans in his corner. Both of you, before we go, debt ceiling. What happens there? That has to get tackled in some way in the next 2 months.
Mealy-mouthed solution. Republicans will cave in the end.
We'll get past the debt ceiling and we'll reduce the size of government. The Republicans actually have won on that issue. All the talk in Washington is about deficit reduction, reducing the size of government. They don't realize they've won, but they've won.
We won't get the spending cuts, unfortunately.
So it sounds like the perfect compromise in a way, and that leads to other things like immigration and other things. Jeff Simone, George Bachrach, thanks for being with us on the Morning Show this morning. Appreciate it. Bridget, over to you.